Good evening. Welcome to the October 23rd community meeting for the Cameron Peak Fire. Tonight, the Cameron Peak Fire is 206,977 acres, 60% contained. This fire is also managing what's called the Thompson Zone. So that's the part of the East Troublesome Fire that crossed the Continental Divide and is on the east side now. That's called the Thompson Zone. And when that was flown at 1:30, that was 1,723 acres. Tonight we'll start with Incident Meteorologist Dan Bird, move to Operations Section Chief Paul DeMerico. We'll hear from Sheriff Justin Smith, Rocky Mountain National Park Superintendent Darla Seidels, have an update from Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association, and we'll conclude with Incident Commander Dan Dallas and take some questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Incident Meteorologist Dan Bird.
All right, good evening, everyone. So lots of weather going on the next couple of days. To start off with, we got a red flag warning that is in effect beginning at midnight tonight and continues through tomorrow afternoon for gusty winds and low relative humidity values. The strongest winds have already begun at the higher elevations across the fire. Up here, we're seeing gusts up to almost 50 miles per hour at the higher elevations currently. And these strong winds are going to continue to increase through the evening into the overnight hours. It looks like the strongest winds will occur after midnight till about 6 or 7 in the morning. We're going to see gusts from 50 to 60 miles per hour possible over the western portions of the fire. The winds will be a little bit lighter as you get further to the east. Could see some gust 20s over the eastern portions of the fire. And down in our Thompson zone, they're going to see winds gusting, should be gusting around 40 miles per hour pretty much through the night into tomorrow over this fire here. Relative humidity values are going to actually rise this evening, but after we get after midnight or so, the relative humidity values are going to actually drop overnight. By tomorrow morning, their RHs will be right around 30% across both our fire and the Thompson zone fire. The temperatures are actually going to rise overnight also. So by morning, right now the temperatures are pretty cold. We're seeing most of the fires in the 20s, but by tomorrow morning, there could be temperatures up to around 50 degrees over portions of the fire. So it's also going to warm overnight. So due to those reasons, we do have a red flag warning that continues through tomorrow afternoon. The winds are actually going to stay relatively strong through tomorrow morning into the afternoon hours. But after about 2 or 3 o'clock, the winds are going to begin to subside through the afternoon hours, and the relative humidity values are going to rise in the afternoon hours to about 40 to 50% by 4 or 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Cold front is poised to our north, and that cold front will begin to move southwestward across the fire tomorrow evening into the overnight hours. By 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow evening, we could begin to see a little bit of a light snow or rain mix across the fire tomorrow evening. And then it looks like after midnight tomorrow night, all the precipitation is going to change to snow. And it looks like the snow is going to continue tomorrow night, Sunday, and into Sunday night. And because of that, we do have a winter storm watch that is in effect for tomorrow night through all of Sunday across the entire fire, actually across most of the area tomorrow. We do have a winter storm watch. Accumulations look like they're going to be generally about a foot at the higher elevations at the divide, lesser amounts as you progress east across the central portions of the fire, probably 6 to 10 inches, and then 4 to 6 inches as you get further to the east. So pretty good snowfall accumulations across the entire fire is the way it looks right now. Along with that, temperatures are going to be very cold. By Sunday morning, temperatures are going to fall to probably around upper single digits across most of the fire. Highs on Sunday are going to be in the teens. And by Monday morning, much of the fire may see temperatures below zero. So very cold conditions, and the cold conditions are going to continue into Tuesday. And then as we get into Tuesday afternoon through the end of the week, temperatures are actually going to rise as upper ridging builds across the area. So we could see highs at least into the 40s later into the week. So pretty interesting weather next couple of days, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next up, we'll have Operations Section Chief Paul DeMerico.
Good evening, Paul DeMerico, Operations Section Chief. I'm going to start over here on the west and north side of the fire. Continues to look really good. No concerns, no issues. We still have a presence with mostly wildland fire engines. And they're primarily focusing on this area, just ensuring that that mop-up they've done and securing that piece of line is still looking to be. We're continuing to monitor that for any additional heat that may arise. But as of right now, we're feeling really confident about where we're at there. No issues, no concerns. As we head down into what we call Branch 2, the west side of the fire, I'm going to start with Stuckshire Pingree. And there on Pingree Road, I got a chance to actually get out in the field and take a good look at that yesterday and look at some of that infrastructure in there and really painted a good picture for me as far as what that looks like for our firefighters. Really steep country. A lot of it has burned, but a lot of the structures and infrastructure are still intact. The issue in there is that we have some unburned islands. We call them like 100 acres or so here and there, and some of that intense area. So for us to actually pick that up direct and do anything in there for control features is really difficult for our forces on the ground. So we continue to monitor that and the fire's doing in there. A lot of it has been burned. Like I said, it's just that interior stuff that continues to act up here and there when we get winds on it. So our plan is to continue to keep folks in there. And as if it progresses, if it poses any types of threat, we'll have our folks in there to be able to mitigate that. And to be honest with folks, really the only thing that's going to, for any type of smoke or activity to really be dampened in there is Mother Nature and precipitation. So as we continue to evaluate that. But no imminent threats to anything as long as our folks are in there, we're monitoring that. Moving over into the Buckhorn Road, the 44H road there, continues to look really good. We got line around all of this here. We're still looking at a little piece in here that's unburned and a piece right in here. But the rest of the entire Buckhorn 44H road has been secured. We're not showing containment line on that because we're still securing it by mopping up and mitigating some of those, any types of unburned areas in there that may still pop up or flare up. County Road 27 down here, everything continues to look really good in there as well. Fire has stayed west of County Road 27, and also the spot fire out here has been completely lined with a combination of hand and dozer line, and we continue to work that. We're hoping by tomorrow we'll show full containment on that with all the good work that's been done. We did turn the corner down here near Masonville and started working west. In this area in here, we have a combination of hand and dozer line all the way into here. And folks continue to secure that. We're feeling really good about this area as well. A lot of good work's been done. Power was turned back onto those areas today, and our firefighters have made good progress. We did put a dozer line here, and on the Storm Mountain, we burned off that dozer line down to some bluffs to secure the community of Storm Mountain so the fire doesn't impact any infrastructure in there. That was successful, and we continue to herd the fire down to County Road 43. What I mean by that is it's backing currently, and when it does get fairly close to the road or our control features, we end up doing a back burn or whatnot, just as it gets maybe within 100 feet of the road or our lines, containment lines. Moving on to the North Fork Trail, we've done so I'm working there with hotshot crews and some hand crews, and we continue to hold the fire. That we did get a little slop in here, and the folks were able to pick that up and tie it back into the trail. It's a really good primary control feature. We are looking at a couple alternatives to continue to use the trail or pick that up direct and tie it into some fuel types that aren't conducive to burning, such as the tundra and some of the high elevation peaks. We're going to move down into the Branch 3 area, what we're calling the Thompson Zone, the Estes Park area. The fire, as most folks are aware, spotted over the Continental Divide, and here we have a fire that's just west of Estes Park. The Rocky Mountain National Park has done a tremendous job with their fuels treatments in this area, giving us a really good advantage in here before we were able to even have an assessment from our folks. So kudos to those folks for doing that. It's given us the upper hand. We do have folks currently in there doing structure protection and assessment. What we mean by that is some of the areas in there that have thicker fuels than some of the others, like the Cayley Cottage area, Fern Lake, the YMCA. Those areas we're working on just cleaning out some of the vegetation around those areas to make sure that in case the fire does make a significant run, we have those areas that have a better defensible chance of protection. We did identify some a catcher's mitt, what we like to call it, to where if the fire were to do make a strong push towards Estes Park. We're able to use those fuels treatments and ground resources, wildland engines, hand crews, and whatnot to be able to light that, to do a backburn to prevent the fire from impacting Estes Park. So we do have folks in there. We are working around the clock, 24 hours a day. Our air assets, suppression resources have been grounded recently just due to some of the weather. If it's not wind, it's inversion and cloud cover. So we're really hoping tomorrow we can fly a little bit, get a bit better eyes on the ground, and also assist our firefighters on the ground using aerial resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Next up, we have Sheriff Justin Smith.
I get the feeling Paul was trying to close that out and get off stage. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm still trying to digest all the weather information we got that is really going back and forth, and a really interesting weather forecast. It gives you an idea of what the folks are dealing with. This is really going to bounce around quite a bit. Some of the things I'd like to share with you tonight. First one is for everybody who was impacted in Cameron Peak Fire. We've gotten a lot of those areas open, but back in the burn areas, there's been a lot of work being done. With that said, as the weather forecast comes, we know, obviously, we witnessed the weather that's here already, and we know there's more, pretty cold weather coming. Is that I've talked to my staff. For those of you who have not been able to get back into your properties that are within those burned areas, and of those of you who have lost property, the direction to my staff starting tomorrow is to do everything we possibly can to get to yes for folks that need to get back in there. Now, we've made a lot of work on getting folks back, sometimes escorted based on the area where they're at, where the firefighters are at, but we're really going to double down on that, on getting to yes for folks that specifically need to get back to winterized cabins. With this weather coming, I know there's been a lot of challenges already. I know you're facing some challenges wanting to not have burst pipes, things like that. So I would ask that you don't come first thing in the morning, because typically we're waiting for those fire crews to get back in, get some folks on that we can confirm with on the safety of getting to those areas. And we'd hope to be able to kind of move through the day in those areas. And really what I'm talking about, for the most part, is going to be the folks in that spot area, up Redstone Canyon, up Otter Road, the ability to get in there. Obviously, Paul had some great news on the progress, along with a lot of the folks here off of County Road 27 in the burn area. If you haven't gotten in, there's still some properties I think that are iffy and may not be accessible. Wait and see. But I've given my staff to do everything we can to get to yes. We'll also look at that on 44H. That one, depending on the fire that Paul was talking about up there, may still have some dicey areas in there. But and then again, back up on Storm Mountain, I'm feeling much more comfortable with the news I get on Storm Mountain. I know we got a lot of folks in over the last couple of days to kind of the southern areas that weren't as deep in and weren't near the firefighting operations. Tomorrow, we may be able to get some more folks in and get back into that area. The Miller Fork, I think, is probably the most concerning in that back area that was impacted. Because as Paul mentioned, it's still active back there. Certainly some encouraging news on what they've done with the lines back there. Today was a great pause in the weather for them to really get that groundwork. And Paul mentioned it wasn't so much no air resources up, but so we'll continue to work with folks there. And really all along, if you've got a property you didn't get into, check through the day tomorrow. Again, don't come in real early, because if you get there before the fire crews have gotten up and we can confirm, we can't get folks in until we've done some confirmations. Highway 14 is one of the concerns that's been brought up. That's one we did not get open today, but I did get word that they got done with all the power pole operations. I know we've worked, so if there's folks that need to get to cabins, get to homes, to winterize, that's going to be first priority. And I'm hoping tomorrow we might be in a position to actually open that road to the public a little later. But I would encourage you on that to wait until that comes out through the NOCO alerts and make sure that's clear. But we want to get that area open back up. I think that mostly addresses the folks there. For you folks, it's been a long haul, and certainly we understand that. We're going to work with you, because last thing I want is to see further damage to your homes. And then moving on down to the East Troublesome and the fire around Estes Park. Obviously, that for the folks that were up there yesterday, I think the first thing that you obviously recognized was how challenging that is to evacuate the whole Estes Valley. It's a lot of work to do, and you saw how challenging that can get. I can tell you we learned lessons. State Patrol really worked with us to find ways to get folks out as soon as we possibly could without having crashes and other issues. We got folks out, and I know as you left, if you were up there, you definitely understood it was time to go with the way those skies looked. Now, with that said, it's a very different day today because of that weather change. We went from skies that you felt like the fire was right on top of you to skies and weather this morning that was about 14 degrees in the Estes Valley and just socked in with low cloud cover, extremely high humidities, a lot of frost around. And to be honest, if you're basing it just on what you saw there and you had not seen yesterday's weather, I think the natural conclusion is why do we have this evacuation? Well, if you look at what we had beyond that and getting up above the fire, for those in the Estes area, if you had been above Many Parks Curve, you got right above that, you got above the clouds, there was clear sky, temperatures went up about 15 degrees, and then as you got to the top of Trail Ridge, you had those very typical Trail Ridge winds for this time of year that were very steady. So with that, I just bring that up as a little bit of a reminder to not be complacent based on a short-term bit of weather we've seen. Fire is new to the Estes area with Troublesome. However, from everything that's happened through this event with Cameron Peak that there's a tendency to become complacent when 10 to 14 inches of snow did not stop the fire then. And certainly what we have now, while it is a welcome pause, is certainly not enough to change the fire, make it go away. And for those who are going to be wondering about that repopulation and isn't that fire no longer a threat, I'm just going to remind you, let's go back to December of 2012 when another fire in almost the exact same area, excuse me, the Fern Lake fire started in September and was in the park and was up there slow for quite a while. And then in December, when the winds hit it, that fire ran down and in the matter of a night, got all the way down to the bottom of Moraine Park. I'll leave more specifics on what's going on in Rocky to Darla Seidels, who's joined us tonight. But I'm just going to remind you the reason that we remain concerned is that's the way that fire behavior is bound to be. It will come down at some point in time. I believe the difference for us and working closely with the town officials, Estes Park Police Department, we're having a lot of conversations because we understand not simply the inconvenience, but the financial impacts on everybody who's got a business up there. That's absolutely in the discussions. I talked to Captain Rose this afternoon about that. So those things are factors that we're paying attention to. But as we think about that and talk about it, what we need to keep in mind is that fire will come down. What I liked about seeing this weather was every hour that we had that cool weather and still was one more hour that fire was not running towards town. I believe it's bound to get to the eastern edge at some point, but if we get enough time between now and Sunday and our weather forecast holds true, that's a factor that will definitely change that fire behavior. I don't believe it's going to stop it, but it does put us, as we're going into tomorrow, in a very different position to be able to look at that. And if we believe the fire is not as likely to come fast and hard, it gives us the ability to do that repopulation quicker. Keeping that in mind, I do want everybody to continue to think about how difficult that was getting so many people out of the Estes Valley, and it will be difficult again if we have to do it. So we definitely want to be very thoughtful on it. We're balancing your financial issues, your need to get back home with those issues of how fast we get people out. So know we're paying attention to that. Know we're working with everybody involved. And again, greatly appreciate the tremendous response we're getting from the community, for the firefighters, for everybody impacted. Folks have done a real good job. I know this tests patience, it does for all of us, but I know we're getting into a better place, and even though we have some winds coming, I'm definitely feeling better about the weather. So continue to work on that. We're working on for everybody that's up in the Cameron Peak, and at the very least, if you can't go back to stay, and there's certainly some of those areas, we at least want to get you back to winterize. And the last thing I'll add is the damage assessment teams. We've hit the point that we've got some people getting to a dangerous level of fatigue. So we've had to put a pause on completing some of those damage assessments that aren't complete. But based on that, what we've talked about is just because we didn't finish the damage assessment is not a reason to stop you from getting back if we can get you back to your place. You know these areas. I know some of them are going to be a little precarious to get into. You own property there. You live there. You know that. And we don't want to get anybody hurt. However, we also know there's at the very least a need to go back and see those properties. So with that, we're going to continue working on those things tomorrow, make some more advancements, and I'm going to hand the microphone over.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sheriff. Next up, we have Rocky Mountain National Park Superintendent Darla Seidels.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to be here to represent the interests of Rocky Mountain National Park and the communities around us, and be here to answer any questions you have about the park. And for those from Estes Park who had to evacuate yesterday, we definitely feel your pain. We, a couple of nights ago, had all of our staff on the west side in Grand Lake have to evacuate in a hurry, along with other citizens over there. And then with the evacuation of Estes Park, the vast majority of the Rocky Mountain National Park staff had to evacuate there as well. So it's my staff, that's my community, I live there. So I very much appreciate the anxiety that evacuation has on people, and the impacts that it has when you have to throw all of your things in the car and head out not knowing how long you're going to be gone. So for those who evacuated much earlier on these upper parts of the fire, and then for those who've evacuated Grand Lake and Estes Park, we're all in it together. So I did want to say that, kind of following up on a couple of the things that were said earlier, the park has done a lot of fuel treatments around Estes Park. We've spent the last 20 years doing those fuel treatments, and about 3,000 acres, and that is helping the firefighters to figure out a strategy for all of the different options to cut that fire off should it come to the east. And so I'm very proud of the work that we've done working with the community of Estes Park and making sure that we've done our due diligence from the national park to protect those areas. And we've got more work to do for sure, but this is an opportunity to connect those areas and some of the natural features of the park, like meadows and other terrain like rocks that will more naturally tie in. So that we can create what everybody's calling this catcher's mitt to catch this fire, whether it comes from this spot fire or from the larger edge of the East Troublesome. So with that, I'll turn it over, but I am here to answer any questions you have. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Darla. I have a update from Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association. And so they say work is progressing well. We're happy to report that power has been restored to the following areas: Pingree Park, the CSU Mountain Campus at Pingree Park, Monument Gulch, where that's possible, along Highway 14, Eden Valley area west of Buckhorn Road, County Road 27, where that's possible, Buckhorn Ranch, Glades West Subdivision, Redstone Canyon, and Cedar Park. Again, from Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association, we anticipate Foothills Ranch off of Highway 36 in the area of Moondance Way off of County Road 27 to be energized later this evening. The Buckskin Heights area is still in damage assessment, and we anticipate construction to start early next week. So that's from the Poudre Valley Rural Electric Association. Thanks to them for this update, and we'll bring on Incident Commander Dan Dallas.
Hi, good evening, folks. Thanks for your interest once again. I just want to start with, it's always such a pleasure to follow Sheriff Smith because I don't have to say as much. He can explain a fire as well as anybody, as well as, of course, his business too. But I did want to say a couple things. If you're in our business, wildland firefighting, very long, you either soon learn humility, or you're just kind of a failure at it, and worse, you could get yourself hurt. So this is a good example. So, of course, Mother Nature works in rhythms and patterns and cycles. But I've got to say that over the last couple weeks, the cycles have been fast, and the patterns have changed almost daily. So as the sheriff mentioned, as you heard from our IMET, we went from having an active fire bearing right down on Estes Park to now looking at extremely cold weather and how that changes the fire behavior and everything associated with the fire. So I just wanted to give you a kind of a quick vision of the future and a bit of a warning. So we're losing minute and a half, about 2 minutes a day on either end of daylight. So that's in our favor. There's not as much time for a fire to burn. That said, though, the pattern of this fire is kind of these docile periods. You even had snow in September. We're looking at snow probably again. But after that comes a warming period, a warming and drying period. And the pattern of this fire is that will calm it down for a while, and then especially after a few nights with what we call poor humidity recovery, where it basically stays dry at night, this fire could get active again. In regards to, and so that's kind of the subtle warning. But the activity of all the other teams that have been here, and then our activities, even though you can still see patches of red here, which is uncontained fire line, one thing I can assure you is there's been boots walking across every foot of that. And then what you can anticipate as we go through and take advantage of the weather change is more and more of this is going to be taken away. So what you can expect in the future, there will be another team that comes behind us, and the places that we weren't able to get to, and it's really pretty simple, and I can say it simply. What's going to be left is going to be the steep and deep. And our strategy, our tactics there are basically let the fire build some sort of control feature, whether that's a bulldozer line, a hand line, come down to a road, whatever it is, and then wait for the fire to come to us, to our control line, and then deal with it then. So there's going to be places on this fire. There's a very few of them now because once again, the human condition can surprise myself and my deputy, because some of the places we didn't expect to get to, they've been got to. Some of particularly our really kind of professional firefighters, the hot shots and other people like that, they kind of take some of this as a challenge, and once in a while we find ourselves in a position to even having to slow them down. But in this case, a lot of the really challenging landscape that folks have worked on has been certainly worked, and some of it that we anticipated that we'd have to do by other means has been had line put in it by our folks, and so we're pretty proud of them. But anyway, that's a bit of a vision of the future, and I'll try and cut it off now because I always look forward, because it's pretty amazing some of the questions that folks come up with. They're pretty innovative, and I hadn't thought of them before. So I look forward to this part of the program. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, well, we got a couple for you, Dan, so
Very good.
don't go too far. So can you tell us, the meteorologist was talking about single-digit temperatures and things like that. So what does that mean for firefighters that are out on the ground?
Slows things down. I'll just say in general it slows things down, although in some it just depends on what the function is, but it's not difficult. Anything that involves water, that normally involves water, we have to be really careful with. You can freeze up the pumps on the engines, and so we have to be really careful about doing stuff like that. That doesn't mean we don't do it, but as long as you're active and you're running the pump in an engine, it's fine. But the minute you don't want to leave them in the parking lot all night, you got to do things like drain them at night, and so it just generally kind of slows things down. some of the ground disturbance stuff that we do, like digging line, is actually in a lot of cases is easier, and we're more productive during those times because it's you can keep working. You're not as hot. You're warm just because you're doing work and stuff. You have to be careful when you're finished working, but so it just varies. So just overall, I would say it slows it down slightly, but it does not stop it.
Okay, and what about the firefighters themselves? Are they, how are we taking care of them in the cold?
We anticipated the cold weather, and what we've done is just in general gone from having our folks, some of them camping out by the fire lines or down in camp that are open air, if you will. They're sleeping in tents and things like that. We found refuge for them, everything from hotel rooms to sometimes a big tent like we're meeting in now. It just kind of depends, and it depends where they are and what their situations are. In general, most of them now are in hotel rooms.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Hey, we'll bring up the sheriff. I have a couple questions. Thanks, Sheriff. You did a great job. I had a list of questions that were coming in, and you hit all of them as you were going through your update. So okay. That's great. One more time, though, if you could say for people that are wanting to get in to try to winterize and visit, what's the process? How are they going to do that?
So the problem, or the process to get in. First of all, I would ask that you don't. I understand the intent. Hey, I'll get up at 6 or 7 in the morning and get in. We just don't know what the answers are. So my take would be like 9 o'clock or after. Gives the fire crews a chance to get in, our personnel to get on scene, to connect up with them. If you're nearby and just want to come to the closest checkpoint, that's certainly a possibility. You can go in and make the ask. Probably better off for you would be to check ahead of time, call our Joint Information Center. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but again, if you go to larimer.org, click on that link in the upper left-hand corner, that will bring all the information on Cameron Peak now, the ET fire as well. I want ET to go home and send it back where it came from, but you can go to either one of those. It'll give you the Joint Information Center. You can call. We're staffed. Now, understand they're taking like 1,000 calls a day. It's an amazing volume, and understandably, of folks calling. If you'll call and you can tell them the area you're looking at, ask them to check, and it may take a little while because, especially in the morning, we get a huge surge of calls. But if you're ready, and the process might be you're in an area we can just actually say, hey, you can go in, check out. Also, other areas might be ones where they're going to have to wait for a deputy to escort you in just to make sure that area is safe, check in with the fire personnel. So if we can get you in, that may be the possibility. And the one thing I'll reiterate, if you're anywhere in these zones, drive slow, be very careful, because the fire personnel, sometimes they're in trucks, a lot of times they're just on foot in the area. The last thing we want is to endanger anybody out there. So with that, that's the best way to check in. And sadly, there's going to be some areas that may not be a yes yet, but we're working to do everything we can to get that yes with you.
Okay, great, Sheriff. Appreciate that. We'll bring up Darla Seidels now from the park, and got several questions for you. Thanks, Darla. So one of the, a theme in a lot of the questions is firefighting different in the park? Are there different rules? How does that work?
Well, each agency has its own policies, but we all really operate under the federal wildland policies, so there's actually a lot more commonality than there are differences. And so, for example, we may be monitoring fire or very aggressively fighting fire, but we all do the same type of work. So subtle differences, but much more commonalities than differences.
Okay. Let's see. And then another question is so our update is about the Cameron Peak Fire and the the Thompson Zone. But what can you tell us about the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park, west of the Continental Divide, and how that's been impacted?
Okay, so I do have a little information on that. The East Troublesome Fire. So, as you all know, the Grand Lake area was evacuated very rapidly a couple of nights ago. It made a 100,000-acre run very quickly within less than a day within an operating period. And so people had to evacuate pretty quickly out of Grand Lake. And that fire started spreading north into the park. It's continuing to spread north now, and I think the location is approximately 2 miles south of Holsworth Historic Ranch, if you're familiar with that area. And so the fire is actively burning on both sides of Trail Ridge Road that goes up through the Kawanichi Valley. And crews are in there. We're hoping to get some structure protection in there tomorrow to help protect that Holsworth Ranch and all of those historic features. But right now, again, the Trail Ridge Road remains closed due to the fire. And then with this weather coming in, we can expect to see, 12 plus inches of snow up top.
Okay, and then, a couple of specific questions about the visitor centers. Have they been on the west side and on Trail Ridge? Have they been impacted?
So we'll start with the west side. The Kawanichi Visitor Center over here, fortunately, was not impacted, so it is still standing. We are currently doing structure assessment in that area on the west side and don't have a full report yet. Over here on the east side, the Beaver Meadows Visitor Center and the Fall River Visitor Center, those are both fine. They're not threatened, or they haven't been subject to fire at all. But of course, if this fire continues to move, there is potential for them to be impacted.
Okay, thanks for that. And this person acknowledges there's a whole lot of other things going on, but they are curious about if we're seeing any impacts to the wildlife or kind of how wildlife reacts in these situations in the park.
We care about wildlife too, a whole lot. As you know, Rocky Mountain National Park is one of the premier places in the Rocky Mountains to experience the wildlife. So thanks for that question. Typically, animals can get out of the way. When they sense smoke, fire coming, they will get out of the way. So, they're on their own to do that. We do try to take special precautions to ensure that people are driving slowly as they're working on the fire and going to those places. You all know that live in Estes Park or come to Rocky Mountain National Park, the elk are in the road all of the time. That's actually probably a bigger threat is the road traffic because they stand there, and we need to make sure that we're being safe with driving slowly and avoiding the wildlife on the roadway. And then just being very responsible with how we fight fires and make sure that we're doing proper food storage and that sort of thing. So just, again, from the standpoint of the wildfires affecting wildlife, they typically can get out of the way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Darla. Appreciate you,
Thank you.
being here. I have just a couple questions that came in that I'll address again. So there was a question about, again, to repeat the acres of what we're calling the Thompson Zone here east of the Divide. So when that was flown at 1:30 this afternoon, that was 1,723 acres. Now the question is how many firefighters are on, and it's about 1,900 now. And when this team first got here, before the fire made this big run, it was a little under 1,000. So we do have quite a few more firefighters in now. So with that, our next scheduled Facebook Live will be Monday at 7:30. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you then.